So my name is Scott Charles, for those of you who don't know me. I am the manager of training at Ken Cook Company. I've been with Ken Cook for just a little under 3 years. Have done a lot of instructional design work there, building courses. Ken Cook itself has kind of 3 main pillars of what it does. We do print, we're a print house. We develop training, online training, classroom-based training, all types of training really, and we have creative services as well. We generally serve the marine, automotive, manufacturing, and construction industries, and we've been around for I think a little over 75 years now. So these industries are our bread and butter and generally the type of stuff that I work on and our training team works on, but we also do work with other industries as well, and we do enjoy all types of training, but a lot of the training we do is operator-based training, safety training, things of that nature. So as I was putting this presentation together, it told me I should put a quote in, and what better quote than what my boss constantly says to me when he reviews my presentations is that there are too many slides in this presentation deck. So I will do my best to make things fairly concise and get through this presentation so that we can hopefully have even a little bit of conversation at the end. And the presentation is pretty straightforward. We're going to first talk about quote unquote traditional manuals, then jump into the actual meat of the content, which is digital manuals, the applications of digital manuals, and we'll talk about the Q&A. But as I said earlier, if you weren't on, please go ahead and if you have questions, write them in the chat. I'll try to check the chat as we go through and respond when I can. If not, we'll definitely get to every question at the end. Any questions before I begin? I'll just give the chat a second. Okay, so traditional manuals. So I'm going to start with a little quote here from Roger Bridgman. He's a former curator at the London Science Museum. Instructions are there to compensate for the inabilities of machines by employing the abilities of users and therefore tell you something about the state of both at the time they were produced. So as you take a look at these 4 kind of randomly selected manuals over time, you see some similarities, you'll see some differences as you go through them. If we start from the kind of early turn of the century type instruction manuals, a great example is the box brownie cameras from Eastman Kodak that were extremely interesting little manuals, and they actually were provided a little more of a human touch than simply do this, do that. When you were to read the instructions, it actually even gave you, how to set up a proper shot, what kind of picture would look good. It kind of told more of a story, which is quite interesting, which, really contrasts to something like, as you'll probably recognize, this IKEA manual that you'll see over here, where there isn't even any text used. It's all pictures. The text that is used is just the numbers of the items, how many items, their product number, really straightforward. And you have these little caricatures that kind of help guide you through as well. Then you move into manuals like this John Deere manual, which we've actually produced for one of their skid steer products, which is pretty straightforward, takes you through everything you need to know how to operate a John Deere product safely. And then we jump forward into this Commodore 64 manual, which, I mean, if there's anything that looks any more 80s out there, please let me know. But again, to kind of harken back to this idea that you can really get an idea of the time that something was developed and what was maybe going on in the world just by looking at the art, for example. So these are just kind of 4 little excerpts from the history of manuals that I thought were pretty interesting, just to give an idea of where things kind of started from the early 20th century through the end of the 20th century, essentially. So before we go any further, I'm just curious, and you can use the chat box if you'd like, what are types of guides and manuals that you use or experience or create in your everyday or professional life? You may or may not work in manuals professionally, but I can almost guarantee you utilize a manual in some way, shape, or form on not necessarily a regular basis, but at least a few times a year if you get a new product, if you're repairing something. If you would like to, in the chat, type a few different types of manuals that you experience or you might interact with. And as you're doing so, here is a list of some of the more common manuals or guides that you might experience, ones that we definitely work in on a regular basis. So maintenance, assembly, troubleshooting, I won't list them all out, but manuals, as you can see, really have an important purpose in our everyday lives. And in a lot of ways, we couldn't necessarily do some of the things we do without them, especially if you work in an industry that involves using machinery or technology, things of that nature, or just your everyday life. How do you use a new feature on your microwave? How to correctly use your toaster. Well, maybe not the toaster. Hopefully you can figure that out, but you kind of get the idea. Thank you, everybody, for throwing some of those in the chat. One idea about manuals that's becoming more commonplace is the increased utilization of manuals for product research, especially with the ease of digital access. Folks will oftentimes use a manual now to do their product research, in addition to reading reviews and things of that nature. But they provide a real great way to get the information you want to know about before purchasing something, especially significant, like you see a motor here. And therefore, these particular manuals have become a little fancier than what you might have seen in the past and over time. They're a little bit more designed with a marketing focus, obviously still with the intent of providing information that's important when you need it. So let's really jump into digital manuals now. What are the benefits? And there are many. I'm going to go through a bunch now, and we can talk about some more afterwards as well if you have any that you want to bring up. Before we do that, I'm just going to start here with a quote by Helene Schumacher. She is a BBC writer, one of the folks I read up on quite a bit when creating this presentation. She says that a successful instruction manual is one that's used as little as possible. It's kind of like the supporting actress waiting in the wings. It's the product that's the hero, the one that the consumer wants to be engaging with, and it's the one that the manufacturer wants the consumer to be engaging with. The instruction manual facilitates the relationship, and if it is an effective relationship, it has to be simple. And that's something I really take to heart as I work on manuals or I develop training or things of that nature, is really making sure to focus on the actual product that we're presenting and providing information about, but also making sure that it's the interaction with the user that's paramount as well. So why digital? Let's start with accessibility and availability. By simply having your content, your manual, your training, whatever it may be, online and available, it really opens up your market and opens it up to who can actually view these things. It could be on a mobile device such as a phone, it could be on a desktop, it could be built in to the actual device you're working on. Let's say you're in a factory, there can be a screen there with training built in, so you can actually access that manual or that information when you need to. Just by having it in such a way, you're not having to go look for a book or find the manual that came with a particular item, and you don't really have to keep track of it as much anymore. By having it digital or having it online, it's always available when you need it. The ease of updating content. This is huge. In the industries we work with, things change all the time. Different components change, safety instructions change, legal information changes. And so being able to change those things almost instantly is really huge. with a printed manual, obviously, if there's an update, you have to release a brand new manual or an addendum or something else to provide that additional information. Send an email even. But if you can actually update the manual that is being seen by everybody on a regular basis, it's typically very easy to do, and you don't have to worry about reprinting and doing versions over and over and over. So that being said, paper documentation just doesn't always keep up with the products, and they can become obsolete. And so we're spending more and more money printing more and more books or papers, making sure that people get their hands on those items, and it's not only increased cost, but it's a burden on the consumer. Paper manuals don't always work well for the user. Not everybody consumes information in the same way. They might read better off a screen or do better watching a video or hearing somebody speak. By providing more of these opportunities digitally, again, we open up to a much wider audience who can better receive that information and better utilize it. And so we get to go beyond text and images. We can include enhanced media. So simply having scalable images, especially when you're talking about schematics or something that's very detailed, where you can really zoom in on a particular item, even if it's a simple image or PDF, is really helpful in a lot of instances. Again, using video content, having that instructional video use as needed, or to explain certain things. That's why a lot of people go to YouTube and other avenues to find out the information they need. 3D illustrations, links to other content. There really is so many more options when we have this digital manual option. Faster navigation, in everything we build, we always build search as a tool, and most digital manuals have this function. Being able to simply type what you're looking for instead of having to find the page number and scroll through or flip through a book saves a lot of time and makes things much simpler. Simply being able to scroll up and down or through a particular manual is also very beneficial. Adding social integration, so building in forums, blogs, question and answer sections, integrating your support services directly into your manual. So somebody can go to their digital manual on a particular product or item, and they can see if they can figure it out on their own, which is always the goal, typically, but sometimes they can't figure it out, or it goes beyond their ability or what they should be doing, maybe in servicing a piece of equipment, for example. By having the integrated support services right there, they can naturally move right from the manual into getting in touch with somebody via text, call, so on and so forth. Multilingual options is a real huge benefit for digital platform manuals. We can build a course in just about any language. We can easily and quickly make it selectable to switch between languages. And this, again, increases accessibility, not only locally, but especially worldwide. And just having this avenue is extremely beneficial. Again, when we have to print so many manuals for many different languages, that becomes an extreme expense, a lot more of an effort to maintain, especially by having it all digital multilingual options are just so much easier. Another thing that you can do in most instances, depending on the authoring tool that you're using, is develop a template for fast production. Now, it doesn't mean you can't have templates for when you're obviously doing a traditional printed manual, but a lot of these digital templates are very user-friendly, very easy to manipulate, and allow you to push out your content much quicker. And so the big one that I've kind of been alluding to in almost all of these is reducing or even eliminating print costs. Now, as I said earlier, our company, Ken Cook, is a print house. We do printing. And so on one hand, for our own benefit, it isn't always great to not have the print. But when you get into certain instruction, you get into certain industries, there is becoming less and less need for that print. And so being able to take the monies that you might use on all these printed materials and put them towards a more robust digital strategy or digital solution is a really great thing. Now, it doesn't always mean you can get rid of your printed manuals entirely. Sometimes there's legal reasons why you need to also have a printed manual available. Maybe certain content still needs to be printed. It doesn't mean you can't have a solution that is hybrid where certain information is printed, certain information is digital. But I think the real goal is to try to get more and more of that content into a digital platform. Because again, it will save on money, it will overall save on efforts, and it'll streamline the experience for users as well. Another huge thing is the ability to control and protect your brand, your message, and all your information. When users go to YouTube or some other avenue to find out information on a product, they might not be getting the right information. It could be dangerous information at times. It could be something, again, we work with heavy equipment. It could be something where somebody's providing information that is just unsafe and somebody can get harmed. And so by making sure you have your digital avenue for this information, you can better ensure that people are getting the correct information. And, information isn't going out about you or your brand that just isn't true. So reducing calls to customer service, we have experienced this personally with one of our customers who went to a more digital manual offering, digital content and training offering. And by having all of that available online, that with more robust information, their particular call for help has decreased drastically. And this is a big deal. This means you don't have to have as big of a call center. You don't have to have as many people have to get on the phone with you and send you emails. It really saves on time and money overall. Reduces return rate, and really just increases customer satisfaction. And the last thing, just talk about briefly, is the idea of adding extended reality. So augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality. These kind of take it a step further beyond just the idea of digital manuals. But think about being able to learn about a particular product in a more experiential way. So things like virtual reality or augmented reality, if it's learning how to use a particular piece of equipment that you might not be able to use inside of a room in an office, but you want to be able to almost use it physically, getting glasses such as the ones you kind of see here on the screen are a really great benefit and option. And we'll talk a little bit more about augmented reality in a moment as well. Before I jump into applications, are there any questions, comments, thoughts about what we just spoke about? Okay, we will keep going. Oh, Will, let's see. So Will is asking what I would suggest in situations where you wish to move to digital, but still need much, if not all content in written format and provided with the product. Just to kind of talk what I was saying, you can definitely, and we work with companies that do have a hybrid situation. In some instances, one of the services that we offer is a print-on-demand option. Therefore, we have the digital solution that is essentially always there, always up to date, and we also have a printed version of it as well that can be requested as customers need it. So you kind of have the best of both worlds by not having your entire, just an entire stock of printed material just sitting there waiting, some of which you might not use. And so that is a really great solution. But you can definitely create storefronts, online storefronts that include all of your content. It could be your digital manuals, digital training, whatever it may be. And then it could also include all of that printed material as well. And we could definitely talk more about specific situations if you'd like to, but that's a really good question. So let's jump into two examples that we have here. that I personally worked on at Ken Cook. The first one is going to be this guide that will actually be launched in the near future by the Association of Equipment Manufacturers. It's about using heavy equipment safely. And then another is a basic instruction manual about outboard water pumps. So I'm just going to switch screens here. And you should see the screen switch. Yep, there it goes. And so this is a basic reference guide. And so it has this general homepage here, built very much like a traditional website with different sections. We can click into a section and scroll through at our leisure, read certain information we want to read. We can hear that information. In this particular project, like most of our projects, we have voiceover. So it's one of those great accessible options.
Safety alerts.
So all the text you see on screen can also be heard. There is also video options as well. So we have built-in videos that can be viewed in this particular screen or pulled out full screen. And you know, a lot of our standard images that you would see in an actual printed book are still here and present. We still utilize them. In some instances, let me see if I can find one, we have animated these particular items, which add a little bit more visual information to what we're actually trying to communicate than just having that flat, non-moving image, which I think is pretty nice. As we talked about, we can search, so we can type in anything we're looking to find, and we can be taken to where we want to go. A lot easier than looking through an index. And again, it's all free-flowing. We can go back to the menu. We can jump ahead. There's no limitation. It's, you know, like taking the real physical book and making it a more accessible digital option, which I really like. I switched my screen. You should see it now. Yep. Okay, great. In this example, this is a more traditional instruction manual, again, made digital. So in this instance, it is an outboard water pump replacement on an outboard motor for a boat. And again, utilizing a lot of the same things. We utilize components for component identification. So you can click on something and find out what it is. And this one is very video heavy. It's really reliant on the video. And so again, it's kind of taking that YouTube experience and organizing it and controlling the information, controlling the message, and really making it right. And so we have all the text here, and we also have the video with the voiceover in it as well.
Remove the water pump housing by loosening the fork.
And so if somebody was looking to replace this water pump, they can go through step by step, broken down very simply with close-up images, audio. And in this particular guide or instruction manual, we are going through how to remove it. And so it's removed, good job. And then we go back and install the new one. And so we do go through every step by step, until we get to the end. We have all the same features as we did in the other one. We have a search. In this one, we even have a glossary, so you can look at particular terms if you need to get that information. And you can also build in resources. So I can build in the specific text manual here as well. And so kind of back to what Will talked about in situations where you want to move to digital, but not all content can be digital. Well, if you still have that written manual, you can still put it here and have it available, have it downloadable. I think that's a great feature as well. You can also add other types of content here, disclaimers, things of that nature. Okay, and so I'm going to jump back to the presentation. And these particular examples are built on a platform called Adapt. Adapt is an open source platform typically used for a lot of training type projects, and we've used it with multiple customers, and really able to do a lot of great things. It really has a lot of great accessibility features built in, and I'd suggest you check it out if you're interested in authoring content kind of like this. Here's another great example of a website that's really devoted to online guides and instructions. It's Ifixit. They've been around for quite a while. If you haven't heard of them, they teach you how to fix just about anything, mostly computers though, cameras, tech like that. And they have all these repair guides up. They're available to the public. You even have car and truck repair guides now, which is pretty cool. But I used to come here when I was trying to fix my computer. So I'd find the computer I was looking for. It even recommends tools for me and that they have available. And I go through and I can see how to do a particular repair on a particular item. Similar to what I showed you about that outboard water pump. I don't believe they really utilize video, but images, text, quite simple, a lot of information right at your fingertips. Really cool website if you want to learn how to repair something or you want to get a better idea of how you can present your information as a guide or instruction manual online. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about AR specifically. So I'll just read this quote here. AR provides an effective digital interface that displays the content visually during initial setup, configuration, troubleshooting, regular maintenance, or for demonstration of proper usage. AR delivers an immersive experience, enabling the user to feel self-reliant, empowered, and in control, translating directly into a positive customer experience. So the example that we show here is a gas oven range, and we're using iPad or mobile device with a camera on it, with a camera or beacon devices like this little white circle you see here. By using the camera, we can take pictures of QR codes in particular areas, or the beacons. As the device gets close to those beacons, the information will pop up, and then you see, for example, this exploded view of this particular, of this particular oven. And these are some pretty simple and cost-effective ways to build on that digital experience and really allow you to share information, share training on a whole other level. You can build a lot of things into this type of guide. Like we've talked about in past things, we can add videos that trigger. We can add high quality schematics like you see here. It's a really neat way to take it even further. It's terrific for training purposes, obviously, but it can also work very well for just general instruction. There's really a lot of different options for AR use. Just to talk about a few more different authoring tools that are out there, and there are so many different authoring tools that you can use. Some are built to do digital manuals. Some are not necessarily built specifically for that, but can be easily adapted. A popular one for manuals is Docket. You can easily create instructions. They have these templates that are really easy to use. You can drop your content in, type your text up, so on and so forth, and produce something pretty quickly. There's a lot of major companies, as you can see down here, that are utilizing them. Inkling is another great company that we've worked with personally. They produce some really great products as well. Flipping Book, Quirl. I won't go through all of them, but just wanted to throw some of these out there to look into if you're interested in authoring some content on your own. Okay, so that's all of the actual presentation that I wanted to get through today. We can spend a little bit of time on any more Q&A if you have any. We can jump a little more into detail on any of the topics that we talked about. But if you want, take a moment and type up a question in the chat. I will be here waiting. I see a few people typing now. Thank you. So question from Will, do I think the user will be more receptive or willing to read content which is online rather than print? I can't give an answer that's an absolute, unfortunately, but in the digital world that we live in now, it is very comfortable and common for many users to use their phone, to use their iPad, to use their computer to access information. It's becoming less commonplace and just less of a norm to use those traditional manuals that a lot of us grew up with. I think for me, personally speaking, there definitely was a little bit of a jump a number of years ago. It took me to move to wanting to receive a lot more information digitally. But once I got more comfortable with ideas like search, it really made the experience much better. And in general, in the customers that we work with, in their user base, their end users, there isn't really much of a pushback to use digital content. It does occur. There are certain individuals, especially individuals who have been maybe working on a certain piece of equipment for the longest time, and they know everything because it's written books that have been passed down to them, or just written materials or written notes. And some of those folks do have a harder time moving to the digital content, but ultimately they end up doing so, I think, without too much trouble. So I guess what's important is to be able to provide support for those people, for any people using your online or your digital platform, having a human available to help with, finding out additional information or just an issue that can't be resolved is still very important. But yeah, in general, I think most people are extremely receptive to receiving online instruction and guides digitally. Thank you for that question, Will. Any other questions? Okay. So I do want to thank everybody who attended today. This is my contact information. You can reach me at scottc@kencook.com. I also have my personal cell phone up here. If you'd like to check more out about Ken Cook and what we do, you can head to our website, kencook.com. If you are interested in taking some of your content and moving to a digital platform, you need some advice or consulting, or even if you need some work done, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And I look forward to having the opportunity to talk about your particular project. I do have some resources here that I utilize to build this presentation. A lot of good folks out there who are most likely even smarter than myself that have some great information. If you want to read more about the topic we talked about today, check these out. And I do want to credit SlidesGo for this presentation today. I would love to take credit for this really cool theme, but I pulled it from them. And they offer a lot of great free and some paid for themes as well if you want to build your own presentation. And also Live Webinar is the service that I utilized today to do this presentation. It's a wonderful presentation tool / meeting tool. Really kind of the best of all the types of meeting tools that I've used. So if you're interested in another way to reach your coworkers, clients, customers, I definitely recommend checking out Live Webinar. And with that, we're going to wrap things up. Again, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to shoot me an email, give me a call. Looks like we have some folks typing. Oh, just some thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you, Adam. Yeah, and I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day to check this out. And check out the Ken Cook LinkedIn for more presentations. We hope to have some more presentations like this in the near future.